Alright, hello everybody. Today we are going to be reviewing A Bad Mom's Christmas, which is, I guess, a second installment to Bad Moms, starring the cast from the very first one, Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell, Catherine Hahn, Jay Hernandez, who was the guy she's with now, as well as some new cast members, although I think, was one of the mothers in the first movie? I'm trying to remember. Uh, Christine Baranski, Susan Sarandon, Cheryl Hines, uh, Ty Swindell, uh, oh no, sorry, Justin Hartley, Peter Gallagher, uh, oh yeah, and then her kids, Una Lawrence and MJ Anthony. And then Wanda Sykes was back as the doctor, like the therapist, and Christina Applegate had a little appearance in it. I thought maybe she would have been more involved in the movie, seeing as it seemed like they were going to become friends at the end of the second or the end of the first movie. But hey, it is what it is. So this movie was slightly better than the first one, I do believe. I feel like the comedy just kind of flowed more in this one than, oh my god, than in the first one, and I kind of like that a little bit more. And obviously, the introduction to the mothers, I think, just made the movie better. I felt like I was laughing more at the jokes in this one because it felt more like natural comedy. And I know that they were trying to portray um, the mothers of these girls in real life. So if that's actually how it is, it's kind of funny. So obviously, Amy and Kiki's mothers seem to be kind of smothering. Amy's mother wanted everything to be perfect, and I guess that's because she obviously had issues with her mother growing up, and Kiki's mom was smothering, wanted to be Kiki's best friend, so on and so forth. And I guess she finally admits to having a hard time dealing with her husband and obviously Kiki's father's death. So she buys the house next door, and she doesn't know how to keep boundaries because she's sitting there um, in Kiki's bedroom while her and her husband are about to have sex. So it's just like, oh my God, like no boundaries at all. So she kicks her mother out, and then that definitely is a mood killer right there. Um, and Kiki's mom tries to make her feel bad for everything, right? So Sandy tries to make Kiki feel bad for everything by saying she has like cancer and trying to trap her. And you would think that the therapist would be more, kind of on Kiki's side, but she goes, "No, you're being mean to your mom, and you sh yeah." It was just so backwards to me that the therapist wouldn't be like, "Okay, that's a bit much that your mother doesn't have any boundaries." And she's just like, "No, you need to be nice to your mother, blah blah blah," and so on and so forth. It was just like, what in the world? And then ISIS literally, she literally says it. She goes, ISIS, like the terrorist organization. She actually says that her name is like the terrorist organization. I'm like, oh my God, there's no way. There's no way she's making that connection with her name. Like, oi, 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 how? And then Ruth was Amy's mother, and Isis was Carla's mother. So Carla kind of had quite a bit of character development in this one, I feel. Like she was starting to become more of a mother figure to her son and starting to care a little bit more about herself. And then when her mother shows up, it kind of seems like you can see why she was the way she was, obviously at her age now. And her mother is always like the party person, smoking weed everywhere she goes and wanting to drink and down to do anything, just kind of like the wild, crazy mom type deal. And she sees Carla changing a bit, and I think she's still trying to make her more like her. And it seemed like they got along the best, but then uh, Carla did say at one point that her mom always shows up only when she needs money from her. So it does seem that way uh, when Isis decides to leave, but then she has like a moment, I guess, of guilt, which probably wouldn't have happened earlier on. But I think she kind of sees the way Carla's being, and she wants to be closer with her daughter. So she decides to go back and uh, ask for forgiveness. And Hank, who is Ruth's husband, so obviously Amy's dad, talks about how even though Ruth can be a bit of a hard ass, she's just wants everything to be perfect because the way her mother was with her, obviously she doesn't want that for her own daughter, right? So she's trying to make everything perfect, but perfect isn't always the best because it's not what necessarily the kids want. They just wanted a calm Christmas, I guess, and it ends up just being Ruth and most of her friends. So um, at least Amy and Ruth were able to finally make a connection at the end of the movie. Because Ruth goes to the church and then Amy follows her there, and all three mums are there. So they decide that they are going to go apologize to their daughters, and Ruth and Amy make Christmas right. Uh, God, I can't think of the other mother's name. Sandy goes and apologizes to Kiki and says that she's going to go back to where she was before. And then she's really just been having a hard time dealing with her dad's death, right? And her husband's death and Kiki's dad's death. And Kiki understands that, but she needs to obviously go back and not be living right next door or across the street or anywhere near them. She needs to give them some boundaries and visit when she can, but yeah, you shouldn't you shouldn't be that smothering, right? Makes sense to have a relationship, but a healthy one. None of these relationships were healthy until they finally made some adjustments, obviously, in especially the mothers making some adjustments to kind of realize that their kids are grown up now and they shouldn't be completely controlling their lives. Or they should be a part of their life more and watch their children actually grow up. So Ty Swindell was the character that Carla ends up falling in love with, and Jesse was Amy's new boyfriend. And oh my God, her mother just doesn't pay attention to anything but herself, right? Like Ruth pays attention to herself and how she's going to make Christmas perfect, and completely disregards Jesse at any cost. She goes, "Who are you again?" And it's like, "Oh my God, I was in the car with you. Like, nice to meet you at the playground, at the play park or whatever that they were at." She goes, "Nice to meet you." He goes, "I was literally in the car with you. Like, how do you not remember me? We just had a car ride together, and now you're reintroducing yourself." It was just funny, and she doesn't even remember his name. She calls him Jesus at one point. I'm like, oh my God. And Amy just goes, "Thanks for trying to remember, Mom. Like, at least you were close. It's Jesse, but you were close enough." Um, anyway, she falls in love with this Ty Swindell character, who I guess is he a firefighter, but he's also a, I think he said he was a firefighter, but he's also a part-time stripper. Um, or he does this charity event every year at least, and she falls in love with him when she's waxing his waxing his downstairs business, because I guess he just doesn't feel any sense of pain. And I guess she kind of likes that. She's starting to fall in love with him while she's doing that to him. And yeah, and then her mom is dancing with him on the bar, and she tries to get in between the two of them. And oh my God, that scene was funny too, because her mom was trying to hit on the hottest firefighter at the bar, and she's like, "Oh my God, Mom, that's my new boyfriend." So yeah, I think they end up, I think that pretty sure they end up staying together, or he goes back to where, yeah, he goes back, doesn't he? I think he goes back to wherever he was before he came to do this event, and but I think they keep in touch. At least I think. Oh yeah, because he comes back at the end of the movie, doesn't he? When they're all having dinner together or whatever. Yeah, I remember. I remember now. He comes back at the end of the movie, so she gets to be with him, and obviously keep the relationship with her mother good, and everybody kind of ends up being happy at the end at least. And the caroling scene was absolutely hilarious, where Ruth makes Amy and the kids and all that go caroling. They were supposed to go see the Russian Nutcracker before they went to like the giant play area thing that they were going to. And oh my God, it was just like, that would have been boring. And then when she kicks her mother out, the kids get mad at her and saying, you shouldn't be so selfish, blah, 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 blah. Like, we actually love Grandma. You can't just kick her out of our lives. But, like, it's so tough for your mom. I don't think you understand, like, how hard that would be when her mom is trying to make everything harder on her, or at least that's the way it seems, right? Even though she's doing it with the best of intentions, it's not necessarily what's best for your child. So you should probably listen to your 34-year-old daughter at that point. Like, good Lord. But anyway, so they make amends, right? And yeah, everybody ends up being happy at the end of the movie, and so on and so forth. And I think that covers about everything really in this movie. Oh, the caroling scene where obviously they get seen by Christina Applegate's character Gwendolyn. She takes a bunch of photos of Amy dressed up as Scrooge. It's just like, oh Lord, like Amy wanted no part of that, and yet, her mother had to be number one for caroling, right? So again, another perfect thing that she had to do, and like the whole Christmas ensemble set up in the front yard of Amy's house, and then having this big hoopla party with all of her friends. Amy doesn't know any of these people, so she kicks them all out. And who was there? Oh yeah, Kenny G was there. She even kicked Kenny G out of her house. It's just like, oh my God, what a mess. And Kenny G's asking for money, even though she probably didn't give him any. So yeah, anyhow, I think that covers everything in this movie. And I did rate this a 9 out of 10. I feel like I got a pretty low rating, 5.6. Like, I thought it was better than the first one. I believe I rated the first one a 7. So yeah, slightly better than the first one, in my opinion. Um, and yeah, I guess because it's around Christmas time, they're putting out all their Christmas movies, right? So makes sense. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.